Welcome, Lee here from Play Guitar Academy. I am here to get you out of the random lesson rut and into real progress on the guitar. The topic for this one's awesome. It's how my blues soloing jumped to light speed and how it's going to help you 10x your improv just by using simple shapes that anybody can play. And as always, I do it a little bit differently by not just showing you how to play them, but why each one of them works. But to make the most of these licks and make your first step towards getting this stuff together, get my Big 4 scale pattern worksheet and start understanding the scale pattern system so you can play these shapes all over the fretboard. Okay, let's get started with the licks. Today I'm playing in the key of A and playing all of these shapes along with the minor pentatonic scale. Okay, let's take a look at shape number 1 and see how this little shape formed most of the ideas for lick number 1. Here are all the different places that I use this shape in this area. So you can put your third finger on the tonic note, the low E string at the 5th fret, and that would go back and forth between that note and the 3rd fret of the A string. Now, if you go to the 7th fret where we did this before, where we demonstrated it, next, if you move that over to the next string, right there, and then the next string, and then finally up on the 10th fret to the 8th on the high E and back to the 10th. The first one goes for a root to a minor 3rd and back to the root. The second one goes from the 5th to the flat 7th and back. The next one goes from the root to the minor 3rd, an octave up of the one we did before. This one goes from the 4th to the 5th. This one we use a lot for bending. For this one, we go up to the 10th fret. That gives us our A, our tonic note up high on the B string, and then the shape takes us to the minor 3rd and back. So now that we've got the shapes, let's take a look at lick number 1 and see how that shape created this lick. Put your third finger at the 7th fret again. We're going to go back and forth between that note, which is the 5th, and the flat 7th. And we're going to go back and forth twice, and then end up on the 7th fret of the D string. That's our A note. So it's like 5th, flat 7th, 5th, flat 7th, tonic. And now we're going to finish that statement off by going down to the lower extension. We're going to put our first finger on the 3rd fret of the A string. That's our C. That's the minor 3rd. And then go down to the 5th on the low string. And that's our root. I like to bend that a little bit too. Just a little bit. Okay, so now we're going to put our 3rd finger on the 7th fret of the G string, bend up a full step, and then finish that off with our shape that takes us to the 5th fret of the next string. That's our E, that's our 5th. So it's 4th to 5th. Then we do that again, but this time we don't bend. So altogether it's bend first, and then don't bend. That takes us up to a minor 3rd high. This is the C at the 8th fret of the high E string, and we're going to use this shape kind of backwards to the root. Let's take a look at shape number 2. This is another diagonal line shape. The first place I use it is at the 5th fret. And if we use that shape, it takes me from the root note on the 5th fret of the low E string to the 4th fret of the A string. That's a tonic to major 3rd. So if you're playing in minor pentatonic, if you hit this shape, you're going to target the chord exactly. That major 3rd is in our A dominant 7th chord. Next, I use it an octave up here at the 7th fret on the D string, and then the 6th fret on the G string. Same notes, A to C sharp. So we're targeting the chord with that. Next, we're going to go to the 6th fret of the G string and then the 5th fret of the B string. What this one does is it targets the major 3rd on the G string, 6th fret, and then the 5th of the chord on the B string, 5th fret. Now, as we move up, we move this second finger up to the 9th fret and first finger to the 8th fret on the G and B strings. That's E going to G. That's the 5th going to the flat 7th. That's a little bit more minor pentatonic sound, right? A little tense. We move it up 2 frets to the 11th fret on G and the 10th fret on B. That's the major 6 going to the root. This is a B.B. King box sound, right? And then the last place that I use this is on the 10th fret to the 9th fret, 10th fret on the B string, and then 9th fret on the high E. That's just like the first one we played. That's the tonic note first, and then the major 3rd after that. So let's go through the lick. First note we play is the 7th fret bent a full step. So we're going D to E, that's the 4th to the 5th. This is minor pentatonic right here. Then we play the 7th fret without a bend. There's our D. And then the 5th fret on that G string, that's a C note. So that's our minor 3rd, all in pentatonic still at this point. Back to 7, back to the D, back to the C, to the A note, to our strong note on the 7th fret of the D string. Then we're going to go to the 6th fret. There's our shape. From the 7 on the D to the 6 on the G. We are targeting that chord with the last 2 notes of that phrase, like punctuation at the end of a sentence. You hear that it starts off kind of tense and ends off resolving. Now we're going to move up to the 9th fret on the G string and the 8th fret on the B string. This is our minor pentatonic sound. We'll go back and forth between those two. That's E to G twice. And then we're going to move this shape one more time to the 9th fret on the high E. That's our C sharp. And then the 10th fret on the B. That is our tonic note. So we use this shape in this pentatonic pattern 3 times. And it sounds cool every time we play it. Targets those chord notes perfectly. Let's take a look at shape number 3. It looks like a line going across, separated by a string. If you put your 2nd finger at the 5th fret on the low E string, and then your 3rd finger tucked underneath on the D string at the same fret, there's our shape we're going to use. I'm going to use these all over this area for the minor pentatonic scale. Right here, this is our tonic note going to the dominant 7th, the flat 7th. Right in the scale pattern and right in the chord. You can't match better than that. Move it over a string. So now your 5th fret is on the A string, and then your 5th fret for the other note is on the G string. So now we've got our 4th and our minor 3rd here. That's D and C. If we slide that out 2 frets, now we've got our 5th and our 4th. Now we move it over to the 5th fret of the D string, and then the 5th fret of the B string. So that's our G note, that's the dominant 7th, the flat 7th, and then we have our E note, that's the 5th. You see, these are all coming directly from the minor pentatonic pattern. Now we deviate a little bit. Now we're going to slide this up 2 frets to the 7th fret. So we have D string 7th fret and B string 7th fret. This shape, this gets a little bit of that Dorian sound, or you can think of it as chord tones from the 4 chord in a blues. But this has got an A on the bottom, which is our tonic, and then an F sharp, which is the major 6th in this. Now we're going to go up another 2 fret to the 9th fret here. Now this one definitely is targeting a 5 chord in a blues, right? So this is the 5th and the major 3rd. For an E chord, that would be the 5 chord in the key of A. So what we have is a B note on the D string, 9th fret, and a G sharp on the B string at the 9th fret. Now we're going back into pattern again. This will be at the 5th fret on the G string, and then 5th fret on the high E string. Use that all the time, especially with bending the G string just a little bit. And then we'll finish up on the 9th fret on those same 2 strings, the G and the high E. And this is notes right from the chord. You know, you've heard this kind of double stop arpeggio all of the time. So this is the E note, the 5th, and then the major 3rd up top, C sharp. So let's go through the lick and see how those shapes constructed this lick. So the first one we start off was the last shape that we played at the 9th fret on the G and the high E string. And then we go back to the 5th fret, the one I said that I like to bend a lot. And we're going to do that half step on the G at the 5th fret, and then finish it off with that shape on the high E string 5th fret. So together. Now we're going to be targeting kind of like it's like almost like we went to the 4th chord. So we're going to be sliding up from the 5th fret on the D and the B string up to the 7th fret. So we're getting that 4-chord sound, or you could think of it as a Dorian sound, a raised 6th sound. And then back to the minor pentatonic on the 5th frets there. It's a neat sound you hear in all sorts of blues tunes. And then we finally end this on the tonic note on the low string at the 5th fret. And then we outline the chord by playing the dominant 7th, that same shape on the D string. Well, let's take a look at shape number 4 here. On shape number 4, we're going to put our 2nd finger on the 7th fret of the A string. And then we're going to put our 1st finger on the 6th fret of the G string. This is the shape we're working with here. I use this in a few places here. So if you take a look here at the first place I use this one right here, this is over the A dominant 7th chord, and it's the 5th and the major 3rd there. So that's an E and the C sharp. Matches the chord perfectly. Now the next place I will use this is over a 4 chord. So we're in the key of A. The 4 chord would be a D7. So here's where I could use this shape and outline my D7 chord. I like to use the F sharp on the D string. So that's the 4th fret, put my 2nd finger there. And then I use my 1st finger to play the root note of the D7th chord on the B string at the 3rd fret. Hear how that. I also use it over the 5 chord as well too. So if you take that last shape, slide it up too, listen to what it sounds like over an E dominant 7th chord, which is the 5 chord in this key. 4 chord, 1 chord. Outlining chord tones all over the place with this simple shape. Another place I like to use this shape is if you go to the G string on the 4th fret with your 2nd finger, and then on the high E string with your 1st finger at the 3rd fret. Can you see it looks like the top of a G dominant 7th chord? I use this to create tension and build into the A 7th chord. In fact, I like to go chromatically like I did in this lick. So it's the similar sound to when you play a chord a whole step down and slide it into the chord that your destination chord is, the chord that you want to go to. Then, of course, I will use this at the 6th fret for the G string and then the 5th fret for the high E string to outline our A 7th chord. Let's take a look at lick number 4. We're going to start off with the B note. That's the 4th fret with our 2nd finger on the G string. And then we're going to go using this shape, 2 strings down and 1 fret back to the 3rd fret on the E string. This is a G. Now these are the outlines of that G 7th chord. It's like we're sliding a chord into the A7, the 1 chord for the key that we're in. And then we slide up a fret, and then 1 more fret, and that puts us into the A7. That's the C sharp, that's the 3rd of A, and that's the tonic note, the A. So now, after about a measure, we're going to play bluesy pedal tone idea here. And we've got the note that repeats is the A note on the 5th fret of the high E string. And as we do that with our middle finger, we're going to pick a lower melody along with that. So we're going to start with the 7th fret on the D string. That's our A note. And that's going to go along with this repeating A up here. Next, we're going to play the 5th fret on the G string. That's our minor third. That's a C. So we have the A up top and then the C on the bottom. And then we're going to play the 7th fret on that same string. And that's our D, still with the A on the top, and then back to the 5th fret. So when we play them all together, it sounds like this. Now what we're going to do is we're going to finish this off on the A 7th chord. We're going to outline it with this same shape, just starting down here on the A string, 7th fret. That's our E note. And then our 6th fret on the G string, that's our major third. Let's take a look at our last shape. Put your first finger on the 5th fret of the D string and then your second finger on the 6th fret of the G string. This kind of forward shape that we're doing here, one string over and one fret down. You've heard this sound a lot. It's a tritone. It's a flat 5 interval. You hear it in Rush songs, Jimi Hendrix songs. But I use it a little differently. I use this for blues because it can target some of these dominant 7th chords really, really well. This one here, 6th fret and 5th fret, especially in the key, if you make a dominant chord, an A 7th chord at the 5th fret, you will see that these notes are the 2 middle notes of that bar chord, right? The D string and the G string, just played by themselves. This is a little fragment of this chord. Anytime you need to reference back to an A 7th chord, you don't even have to play the whole chord. These are the two important notes. You got the major third and the flat 7th of the chord. Now when I go back a fret, now I'm at the 4th fret on the D string and then the 5th fret on the G string. We have that same sound, that tritone sound. But since we're playing blues, this is very convenient because if our next chord is a D, I'm going to play a D9 here, right? So it's a D 7th chord. D9 is a little fancier version of that. Look, those notes are in this chord, except they're reversed. Now the major third is on the bottom. This is an F sharp on the 4th fret. And then the dominant 7th for a D 7th chord is on the G string, on the top note. So just by sliding this shape down 1, now we're targeting the 4 chord in blues. So I can play this. That's my 1 chord. There's my 4 chord and back up to the 1 chord again. 2 notes, the 3rd and the flat 7th, the most important notes. I'm sure you got a bass player or a backing track that's playing the root. These are the functional notes of the chords, and we're outlining them just with this little shape here. Now, if we move that up another fret here, so that we have the 6th fret, first finger on the D string, and the 7th fret, second finger on the G string, we are now outlining the 5 chord in a blues by going forward 1 fret. So now, if you played an E9 chord right here, look, those notes are right in the chord right there. Now it's the major third, the G sharp is on the bottom note, and then the D, the dominant 7, the flat 7, is on the G string right there. So there's our 1 chord. There's our 4 chord, back to the 1 chord. Now we go to our 5 chord by going up 1, the one we just played. And then we go back 2 frets to do our 4 chord, and then the one in the middle for the 1 chord. Pretty cool stuff. Now, let's take a look here. We have one more place I like to play this, and this outlines the first chord in a different way. A dominant 7th here, we have it A, C sharp, E, and G. If we play that shape with the 4th fret on the A string and the 5th fret on the D string, that's a C sharp and a G. That's the 3rd and the flat 7th in a lower octave. So let's go through the lick. We're going to start on the 7th fret, full step bend. That's minor pentatonic, back to the 7 again. So that's D going up to E, back to D, to the minor 3rd, and that's at the 5th fret on the G string. All that on the G string. And now we have our first shape, the one that's at the 5th fret and the 6th fret on the 2 middle strings there. That's outlining the A 7th chord. Then we do that lick again, but instead of playing it at the 5th and 6th fret, we're going to go to the 4th and 5th fret. Now our ear hears the 4 chord. Now we're going to go back and do that lick again. So we'll go up 2 frets, 6th fret and 7th fret. This is going to outline the 5 chord. It's like we played a little 5 chord. Then we'll go back 2 frets. That's our 4 chord. And then up 1 fret, the one in the middle. That gives us our resolution. Thanks for playing along today. When you're ready to break free from that random lesson rut that you're in, come see me. I got you covered. My members get 24/7 access to a proven roadmap that fills in all the missing skills that are holding you back. Plus, you can join our current players who are diving into the tab, backing track, and guitar profiles for this and all of my lick videos. You can also try out membership right now with a very affordable trial offer that makes it a no-brainer. Also, don't forget to download my Big 4 scale worksheet to make all of this easier for you. And as always, let me know what you think in the comments. Have a great practice. I'll see you in the next lick video.